I will call to order at this time the Committee on House Administration's Florida 13th Task Force, and I apologize for the slight delay, but we were having problems getting over here, obviously, with traffic and such, so my apologies. We're going to attempt to be brief today and hear the final report by GAO, but first I think that it would be appropriate for me to extend my thanks, of course, to my fellow members of the task force, and that would be Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren and Kevin McCarthy from California. I also want to extend my thanks to Congressman Dan Lundgren, who was not an official member of the task force, but nevertheless attended some of the meetings and offered some very constructive advice, which actually was followed. And so, Dan, I want to thank you. To the majority and minority staff, again, thank you, because at the end of the day, of course, all of the work is truly predicated on the product that they produce for us as we go through the machinations of the task force. And definitely to the late Congresswoman Juanita Millender McDonald, and you see her portrait in the back of the room, for her fine service, and the individual who actually created this task force with a simple charge of get it right and get to the truth, which hopefully that's what we've done. I also want to extend the task force and the committee's sincere thanks to the Government Accountability Office for their fine work. I think when we first selected them, they entered it with some reservation. I think the concern of any agency or department as many times is that Congress or members of Congress will drag them into a political debate, which would not serve, of course, their mission or their purpose and would jeopardize their objectivity. That did not occur, and we appreciate that they were able to assist us to the degree and the fine manner in which they did. I will be making an opening statement, then I will be recognizing the members of the task force for opening statements. Clive Thompson, writing in the January 6, 2008 issue of the New York Times Magazine, in an article entitled, "Can You Count on These Machines?" makes the following observation. The mistrust of touchscreen machines is thus equal parts technological and ideological. Technology is subject to empirical analysis. Ideology is not. So today we address that which we are capable of resolving through the scientific method. That is, the technological mistrust surrounding the November 2006 election for the office of the United States Representative from Florida's 13th Congressional District. The challenge presented before the task force was to determine the merit and validity of the central allegation contained in contestants' notice of contest, that the electronic voting machines in Sarasota County malfunctioned, resulting in 18,000 undervotes, thus bringing into question the reliability of the vote totals determining the winner of the election as reported by the Florida state officials to the United States House of Representatives. The task force at the outset decided that it would not entertain testing and findings by opposing experts designated by the contestant and contestee, thus avoiding a dueling experts dilemma. Rather, the task force unanimously decided that the United States Government Accountability Office, with its credentialed resources, would serve as the impartial and independent expert. The task force further agreed that it would abide by the GAO's findings, barring some substantial basis to question those findings. Today, the Government Accountability Office will formally present its final report. Following established task force procedure, GAO did make a preliminary briefing before the task force on February 6, 2008 of its draft report. I want to make an important point. The task force has respected GAO's established procedures and protocols. Until a final draft is prepared and presented, GAO's draft report remains a work in progress. On February 6, at the preliminary briefing, task force members determined that the contestant and the contestee, or the representatives, should have a copy of the draft report. This was to allow them to review the materials and convey any questions or concerns to the task force in preparation for today's meeting. I am aware that the draft report was made publicly available, contrary to the spirit of cooperation and respect for GAO's procedures and protocol. I apologize to the United States Government Accountability Office, for this was not what I preferred and was contrary to what I stated and requested at the February 6th briefing. This development is not conducive to creating and maintaining a healthy working relationship between Congress and GAO based on trust and mutual respect. With that, I will recognize the minority member of the task force, Congressman McCarthy, for an opening statement.
Well, thank you, Chairman Gonzalez. Before we begin, I do want to thank the GAO for the work they have done. I also notice Kurt Browning, Secretary of State of Florida, for the work you have done. You did the study before, and as GAO went down, they were very complimentary of how you opened it up, made sure as we went all the way through. And I want to thank this committee, and especially Chairman Gonzalez, because I think you have laid the groundwork of how contested races in the future should be handed out. I thought every decision or every vote we came to a conclusion of in a bipartisan manner. And going to the GAO was something new, and with my own experience actually having been a staffer and worked on contested races before, I think this is one that has been more thoroughly analyzed than any one before it. So I do appreciate the work you've done in all the committee, as well as Zoe Lofgren, and I thought everybody worked in a bipartisan manner, so thank you for that. Today we'll hear the report of the GAO's investigation on this most studied election. The results are as clear as we can objectively expect. After thoroughly combing and analyzing past studies and conducting its own studies to confirm past results, that there is no evidence suggesting any malfunction of the processing and counting of ballots on the DREs. We will hear from the GAO today and ask about its report that concludes that the machines counted votes accurately. With this final and objective confirmation, I hope that we can finally put to rest for the people of the 13th District of Florida the notice of contest that the challenger Christine Jennings filed asking that the House to overturn the election results against Congressman Vern Buchanan and send a strong message to the American people that the results of the 2006 election, in this particular election, have been and were always correct. And I look forward to hearing the rest of the report.
Thank you very much, and the Chair will recognize Ms. Lofgren.
I would just add that I think I agree with the other members of the task force. This has been an endeavor that has been bipartisan. I think all of our votes have been unanimous. We entrusted the analysis to experts at the GAO, and we didn't interfere with them in any way. We let them go through their study, and now they have reached a conclusion. And I would only note that if we had, as the GAO has noted, if we'd had a paper trail, we would have certainly not had to go through this exercise. So this will never happen again in Florida, because Florida, pursuant to the governor's direction, I think, in the legislature, no longer uses these machines, and there will always be a paper trail. And so this will be the last such contest we will see from the state of Florida, and hopefully as states change their election systems, we will never have this type of situation again. I would just like to thank again the staff, the members of the committee, and especially you, Mr. Chairman, for your terrific leadership in this not an easy endeavor, but I think we have done our duty to the institution fairly and under the Constitution. And thank you.
Thank you very much. And even though not a formal member of the task force, but members, of course, the full committee, to which we will be making a recommendation hopefully at the end of this meeting today, I do want to recognize for brief opening statements, and that would be the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Ehlers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the majority of the statement, what I want to say is to commend you and the other members of the task force. It is obvious to me that your judicial experience has been invaluable to you in this. Your judicial demeanor in handling this has been exemplary, and I deeply appreciate it. I've served on several task forces and chaired one. I know how difficult the task can be, and you've been very fair, thorough, and even-handed in the handling of this. You've set an example for all the task forces of the future, and I think I really commend you for that. The second comment I would like to make is a very important side benefit of what we have gone through with this, including the use of the GAO and the work done in this, I think has set a good example not just for us but for the nation, and it will restore the confidence of the public in the process. It was not a coincidence that 4 of the contest. There was only one contest that was filed outside of Florida, and that had to do with residency, not machines. But four of the other four were filed from Florida, and they questioned the machines. Obviously, because of the experience Florida has had over the past decade, there's a spillover here. The public has lost confidence in the results. And I think the result of this is going to demonstrate to the public that the voting process, by and large, is proper, correct, and believable, and that the public should not question the accuracy of election results as they have done for the past 8 to 12 years. So you have set an example and a standard that is very helpful to the nation as well as in resolving this case, and I thank you for it.
Thank you very much for your kind words, and the Chair will recognize Mr. Lundgren for some brief opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thank you for your indulgence in allowing me to participate in the hearings of this task force, although I was not a member. More than 20 years ago, I was a member of the full body when there was a contested election, the results of which caused bitterness in the House and partisanship was exacerbated. I genuinely did not want us to return to those days. And was most interested in how this contest would be handled. And while I did not know the chairman well before this hearing, before the hearings, I did serve with his father and enjoyed my relationship with his father and only knew the chairman by reputation. But I want to thank you, not only on my behalf, but on behalf of all members for the way that you conducted this task force. This was somewhat of a test of our House as to how we would handle this, not only because there were questions raised about the election results, but the nature of the contest. And I think your judgment in having GAO get involved, which was adopted unanimously by the other members of the task force, was very, very essential in the manner in which this was handled. And while I know we're still awaiting the report, I've looked at the draft report and I think I know what they're going to tell us. And I think this does help restore confidence in the ability of this House to be able to handle touchy matters like this. But also it is an example to the American people of where we can work on a bipartisan basis, where it is easy to be partisan otherwise. And I thank the chairman and the other members of this task force.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lundgren. At this time, we'll proceed with the final report by the representative from the United States Government Accountability Office.